Welcome back, everybody, to the Superbet Chess Classic, a long game over-the-board chess tournament being held in Bucharest, Romania. A lot of the world top 10 players participating, two local heroes, Deac and Lupulescu, and as always, I'm going to show you all 5 games in round number 6. And this video is called No, because one man in particular, and actually, as we will see, 2 men are now very clearly becoming the front runners and saying no to this movement of draws and providing us with some quality entertainment. But of course, first things first, I must provide you with the appetizers. And actually, now that I'm realizing it, 2 Men and a Dream really can sound like an adult entertainment film. So anyway, we begin with e4, and we have e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop to b5. Now, very quickly, MVL versus Caruana is actually a matchup from the candidates. Like, these two just played each other in the candidates, so it's curious to see what we're going to get. We get a6, bishop a4, so we don't have a Berlin. We actually have something known as the Arkhangelsk, one of the coolest names in all of chess. The point is that normally in the Ruy Lopez, black plays bishop to e7, but now black plays bishop c5 and b5, which is kind of rare. Actually, also sometimes begins with b5 and then bishop c5. And here, Caruana, rather than playing something with d6, chooses to go d5. Now, this actually doesn't look like it makes any sense, because why would you open the position and give yourself like so many weaknesses back there, especially when your king is in the center and the other guy's castled? But this is actually completely fine, and Fabiano Caruana has actually played this position already with the black pieces once, which is what I would imagine MVL had anticipated. So MVL here plays the 3rd most popular move. He doesn't play ed5 or d4, both moves which are very logical. He plays a4, trying to attack on the queen side. The point is that if you just ignore this pawn, your rook is going to hang, right? Like if you play takes, and you're going to lose your rook. So Fabiano just takes on e4, clearly well prepared with something. The knight is hanging and this knight is hanging, but rather than dealing with either of those, he plays the move bishop to g4. So now the queen is defending the rook as well, and there is a pin here, and probably you're going to have to open up your king. It's a really wild position. This is the move that he played in 2020 against Lenier Dominguez-Perez, the Cuban-American transplant, the grandmaster from Cuba, now in the United States, in one of these online tournaments. Now, here we have bc6, ef3, gf3. The bishop moves to attack the rook, and the rook moves over, and Fabiano castles. Now, all of this has been seen before. Fabiano played all of this already with the black pieces. Rook to a5, attacking the bishop. Like, if you've never seen this before and I don't tell you that, you're like, oh my god, these guys are battling. This is a super crazy game. Nah, I'm not gonna, I would never lie to you guys. No, they're not creating this on their own. In fact, all of this has been seen before. Bishop sacrifice on f2, king takes on f2, e4 to try to activate this. This is the extent of Fabiano's preparation. King to g1, my computer doesn't even realize how strong this is. And now the very calm move, rook e8. Just bringing the rook to the party, not this one for some reason, because maybe you're gonna play f5, f4 in the future. Rook e3, knight h5. Now, up until this moment, everything has happened before. And in that game, Dominguez-Perez played the move rook to g5, and he went on to lose. Probably Fabiano played like queen h6 or queen f6. I don't have the game on me. But in this game, MVL plays something never played before. He plays the move f4. Okay, MVL clearly prepared something. Very nice. Let's see what we're going to get. Knight takes f4. Now he plays rook g5. And now we see the entire purpose of keeping this rook here. You actually get to play this move. This position looks frankly terrifying for white. Even though white is up 2 points of material, you haven't moved 3 of your pieces. You haven't moved the knight, the bishop, or the queen. So d4, and here Fabiano makes a mistake. Fabiano plays the best engine move, which is bishop to g4, attacking the queen defended by the pawn, but that's just a mistake. It's a mistake because the move d4 is on the board, and en passant is legal, and he must play this move, but he doesn't. He plays the best move according to the engine. This allows the sacrifice of the exchange. It's very common, by the way, to sacrifice a rook for a bishop and a pawn sometimes like this, or like a knight and a pawn, especially if the pieces are just too strong. And by removing them from the board, now white just kind of relieves some of the pressure. Now here, there's still a very good move, queen f6. For black. This guards the knight, and it also threatens some infiltration here. The game could have proceeded, but instead Fabiano plays knight d3 immediately. And what do 2 grandmasters do when they're bored? Go on dates? No, they make a forced repetition. So Force draw. Okay, great. Second game that I have for you is the game between the local Romanian, Bogdan, Daniel Diac, and Teimour Radjabov. Radjabov has played a lot of very quick and solid draws in this event. He's then taken to Twitter to, you know, kind of say, like, I support, you know, all chess fans, whether you love or hate me. It's been a very interesting experience watching his tournament. So he plays, we have Rui Lopez, we have Berlin, we have Rookie 1 Berlin, so we don't have mainline Berlin, and we have a very symmetrical structure, and just look at the board, just every piece gets traded. I'll slow it down. They just trade every piece, they trade every piece. Just every single piece got traded, and yeah, it ended up in this position, and it's a draw. The fastest recap game I've ever shown you. Which takes me to game number 3. This is a game between Wesley So and Anish Giri. This one begins with a Nimso Indian. We don't get knight f3 and g3, the Catalan, which we've seen in this event. We actually get knight c3, inviting the Nimso. A lot of people nowadays avoid the Nimso because it's so decent for black. E3 and bishop d3 is the classical main line, and now the big question is what's going to happen with this knight. Knight e2 is more modern, knight f3 is more classical. Anish plays d5, and we have this move. And basically, white is like, yo, take my knight, come on. I know you want to do it, so now I have the bishop pair, I'm happy. But black plays dc4 and c5. And basically, all of black's setup now will involve the development of these 3 pieces and kind of monitoring whether this bishop can get into the game. Because even though, even though white has the advantage of the bishop pair, white has all the pawns on the same color square as the bishop. You understand? So it's going to be difficult to move something without weakening something else. Generally, the way this works for black is black plays b6, puts the queen on c7, bishop b7 or bishop a6, knight c6 or knight d7, etc., etc. Now, you will witness all of those moves now. How do I know this? Because obviously I know everything. Duh. I didn't just like read this in a book somewhere. I was born with this information. So now you see Wesley trying to activate his dark squared bishop, right? Anish plays bishop to a6 and trades off the bishop and develops his knight. Great. Black is uber solid. However, black has literally 0 winning chances. None. Which is one of the reasons I stopped playing this opening with black. I mean, against the solid player, you're really rarely going to get any winning chances. Why? Why is that? How do I know that? Well, the thing is that white has all of the advantages of the position. Okay, maybe one small thing. Black has 2-on-1. That's called a queenside majority. So in the endgame, black could create a passed pawn if they trade. White has a very powerful bishop ready to activate down like the middle of the board. White is about to take control of the open file. This queen is slightly more active. I mean, I like how active this queen can be in the middle or on the queen side, and white is always a little bit better. And so Wesley just kind of does everything that I talked about. He attacks the queen and centralizes. He defends his bishop, and the remainder of this game is Wesley essentially just torturing Anish. So he plays a nice structural improvement, right? This is nice. The knight is going to come around this way, and then they're going to do a little queen dance. Oh, no, they don't repeat moves. We trade queens. Okay. Knight goes back to e8, now we activate with d5. Again, it's just white putting the pressure on black. Black is having to defend this position. We trade. So now you've got a 3 and I've got a 4. And if I can slowly build this up and somehow land one of my pieces in your territory, we're going to make some progress. Now, Anish, of course, is focused on the queen side. Anish very clearly wants to expand on this side of the board and get that passed pawn. That is exactly what I've talked about. Bishop c3 goes to attack it. Now he defends it, and rook b2. And essentially what Wesley's doing is like, no. You're gonna have to pay the toll on the bridge here, buddy. Backing up. Now I'm ready to come in with rook d5. This pawn is weak that you've put over there. Knight d6, but knight d6 loses a pawn because this rook is something we call overloaded. This rook is guarding this and this, so you just go boop. Now here, there's actually a little trick that you could play. You could play knight takes e4 check, f e4, and then take and say, haha, you do not win a pawn. The problem is that move loses more than a pawn, because this pawn is pinned to a rook, which means this pawn is not guarding this square, which means that I can go here, and you lose, because your rook is hanging, and I'm threatening to come in here and fork you. And that square is also protected, so you cannot just go here and defend it. So again, sometimes in chess you try to solve one problem, but let's say you have an irregular heartbeat and you just remove the heart from the body. It's probably not going to fix the problem. You will be dead. So rook takes d6, rook takes a3, and rook back to d5. And Wesley's going to win a pawn, and that's what's going to happen. Now here's the question, folks. Which pawn do you give away? Which pawn do you save? Do you play a move like b4 and give away h5? Now, what do you do? What do you do in this position? Actually, wait, now that I'm looking at this, rook h5, there is knight f4. And that attacks the rook in this. The same problem. Wait, so what's wrong with b4? Oh, again, this knight c4. Both sides have a rook hanging and then a rook fork. Interesting. Huh. So if something like knight c7, I guess then you take on h5, or even rook d7 and you paralyze everything. Let's put it this way. You're going to have to give away this pawn. This is much more holdable, 3 on 4, than 2 on 4 with a stray b pawn. You need your pawns together. Why? Because at the end of the day, when there's one extra pawn and you have a knight, you will sack the knight for that pawn. So the endgame will end up rook knight versus rook, which is a draw. Well, maybe not for everybody. Maybe you'll lose it if you have the knight. I don't know. But, right? Oh, I apologize. Let me back this up for a second. Rook a3, and that's exactly what happens. And the rest of the game is Wesley trying to win and Wesley being unable to do so. The game lasts another 40 moves. Wesley tries to, again, king has to stay near the pawn. This pawn has to not go too far. And the reason why something like this is not happening is because this is simply a draw. Even though you're a pawn up, this is a draw. It's a draw if you know how to draw king and pawn versus king, which I don't know too much about Super GMs, but I'm pretty sure they would be able to draw this. And ultimately the game ends like this, where one side has a pawn, but the other side just does this and gets the pawn. So, congratulations, you've survived 12 minutes of the boring stuff. Now, folks, it's time for the good stuff. I will take you first to this game. I gotta reward the man who's been on 2 of my thumbnails in this tournament. It's a record. He might get on a 3rd one. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov sits down and he says, knight to f3, you're not going to play a Nimso, you're going to have to play this, and we have a Rogozin. Alright, there's a lot of Rogozin stuff. There's bishop g5, there's queen to a4, there's g3. What are we going to get? Queen a4 check, forcing black to play knight c6. Now, if you caught my recap the other day, the whole point of the Rogozin is to play the moves e3, bishop d2, and queen to c2, and ultimately decide what happens in the center. There you go, e3, bishop d2, and queen to c2, and now all of black's counterplay revolves around this move. Sometimes black plays it right away, sometimes black plays a6, sometimes black plays rook e8, but here it is. We have takes, and here in the past I have played this move long castles. It's interesting, but it's just a draw. If black is well prepared, it kind of looks, oh, we've castled on opposite sides, we're gonna attack each other. Now it's hoopla. So we have f4 immediately targeting the bishop. Now if you peacefully retreat, white can play now long castles, and this is just an improvement of the previous version, so white is just happy here. White can also play h3, g4, g5, so we have bishop takes c3 instead. Bishop c3, this pawn is weak, knight to g4. Now up until this point, there's like 10 games in the database, and all of them are the top guys. Magnus Carlsen himself has had this position with the black pieces. Magnus Carlsen's a decent chess player. He's not great, he's not, he's nothing special, but he's had this position with the black pieces, so he knows how to do these things. And here there's this interesting move c5, which just frankly looks like a submission for guess the elo. It just looks like you forgot that the pawn was hanging, and now... But the point of c5 is that now white cannot castle queenside. So black sacrifices a pawn and plays this move rook e8, and you can't castle queenside. If by some miracle, like this or something, you could do this, you just have a nice position, okay? So rook e8, short castle, and we have takes. Now, up until this point, games in the database, like 3 games. And here white has always played queen f2. And that attacks the rook. It usually forces the rook to go back. And we have a completely symmetrical pawn structure, but all of black's pieces are on the back rank, so you could make some argument that white has some advantage. And white is trying to play this for a win. Now, Shakhriyar plays rook e1. I'm assuming he didn't make this up over the board, or maybe he did. But here's the thing. On the surface, it looks like after rook e1, queen d4, like, I mean, queen f2 you actually can play because queen c4 there is just this. But let's say like king h1 or something, black just like moves the bishop, not to f5, maybe to e6, activates the rook, and black is fine. But it's actually a very tricky position, believe it or not, after rook e1. And so Levon actually made this trade and decided that he was going to play bishop d7. Black is so passive here that in order to catch up in development, black will most likely need to sacrifice a pawn. For example, the move b5. This move looks like it just gives away a pawn. It doesn't, because queen b6 check, and there is no back rank mate because the queen actually covers. So b5, like, you need to play certain aggressive attacking moves to try to get some sort of development back. You need to take the momentum back. But this move, bishop d7, that Levon played is just a bit too passive, because now, if you look at this position, this is a nice exercise in weakness spotting. Where are black's weaknesses? Folks, where are they? This and this. And if you said anything else, you are wrong. This is guarded by nothing. This is just guarded by a king. Like, you could say, well, that's a weakness. Yeah, but who's going to attack that? It needs to be a weakness, and you need to be able to target it. Queen b3 is the only way to target both. Now, this doesn't look so bad. I mean, again, if I ask you which pawn do you need to protect, you would probably say the f7 pawn. And you're probably right. I mean, losing the queenside pawn isn't the worst thing in the world if you can defend the position. I mean, on the surface, it kind of looks like you're just losing everything. But you're not, because black has queen d4 check. And probably needs to, like, move this rook. And okay, black is down a pawn and the game goes on. And Shakh would need to win the endgame. However, we get rook e8. And here there's a tactical knockout. Rook e8, bishop e8, and you can pause here and try to find it. I'll take a sip of water. Always look for checks. Shocking. Bishop takes f7. A move that looks impossible. If bishop takes f7, it's a back ranker. You're just getting mated. Queen c8. You can block with the queen, you can block with the bishop. I take both, and it's game over. So Levon plays this, and for a very brief moment, Shakh is up 2 pawns. But he can't really move so easily, because back rank mate is a threat, and queen f4, and bishop takes bishop. He just very calmly retreats the bishop. Now you can't mate me. And if you take on f4, I actually can go here, and it's not mate. And I don't know if Levon just kind of got tangled up in all of these calculations and just didn't kind of spot this, but even though Levon is going to be able to win a pawn back very briefly, there's just this, and Levon's just down 2 pawns. All you gotta look out for in this position, don't hang back rank mate, don't hang your bishop, don't hang, well, you could probably give one of these pawns away, but just don't lose the pawns. And yeah, Shakh doesn't do that, so Shakh is not gonna get back rank mated. He's just constantly going for a queen trade. Again, like I said, he can give away 1 pawn, but in this case it would be checkmate. And he just gives a couple of checks, centralizes his queen, then the game's over. Just game's over. If king h8, is there a mate here? No, probably you just go here. Yeah, just take and yeah. Effortless. Have you ever seen a game that easy? I mean, look at Mamidyarov. He plays a super critical variation. You know, they play into a territory that's been played like just a few times. He introduces a new move, gives black some practical problems, and wins it effortlessly, which takes us to the final game of the day between Alexander Grishuk and Constantin Lupulescu. We have e4, and Lupulescu has played the French twice. He drew MVL, he lost to Caruana, but now he plays the Sicilian. We have knight f3, we have d6, and we don't have the Najdorf, we have the classical Sicilian. This allows something known as the rouser. The rouser after bishop g5 is an ultra-critical variation. Essentially, what's going to happen now is white will play queen to d2, white will castle queenside, black will play a6, black will play e6 probably, bishops will come here like little springboards, and there are many variations where black doesn't even castle. Black's king stays in the center, and white tries to attack, okay? We have bishop d7, which is the main line. Queen d2, a6, all of this is the main line. Long castles, e6, all of this is the main line. Thousands and thousands of games. f4, white is making intentions very clear. b5, like, This is the Sicilian in its purest form. This is going to be a violent game, okay? If you have a child watching, you might need to pause here and speak with them so they understand, all right, what they're about to witness and to not practice this at home. So, bishop f6, gf6. Now, you could say, well, why isn't he just taking with the queen? That looks nice, because this move e5 is very strong. You shred open the center, very dangerous position. d5, you got this dynamite strike, and queen d7 is just mate. So you gotta really have a strong soul to play this. King b1, very important move. Anytime you want to start an attack. Why? Because you want to play f5 in a lot of positions. And you will not play f5 if this bishop is able to successfully mess you up on this diagonal. So king b1 is known as a prophylactic move. Also, it guards all the pawns. The king brings all the pawns and says, listen, I got you, don't worry about it, all right? Gives them a little pep talk. Queen comes out to b6, we chop down one defender of the black position, and now we're ready with f5. Now, the craziest thing about this position, it's been reached like 700 times. It looks like both these dudes are just, this is like unadulterated pure violence. Nah, this has been seen like 500 times. Like, everybody knows this line. Now, this is where we start taking different turns in the forest, okay? Black plays b4. Not here. Here you only have one move or else you lose your knight. Knight e2. Okay, now, black, on the surface, looks like they can take this pawn. This is probably simply too dangerous because after this, I mean, this is like, this is like Joey Wheeler's magic card scapegoat in Yu-Gi-Oh! Shout out to my Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, you're just gonna destroy these one by one and then, get to the life points. Like, no. This is a little bit too much. Black plays e5 here to just shut down the center, and black wants h5 and bishop h6 so that the rook guards the bishop on this diagonal. Now, Grisha plays knight g3 and queen c5. And here, rather than playing bishop d3, which is the overwhelming main line, or knight h5, which is the secondary main line, he plays a move that has not been played in my database at a good enough level since like 2017, 2018. He plays the move b3. That means one of a few things. Grishuk is familiar with the main line, but wants to invent something on his own and see what happens. Number two, Grishuk did preparation on this, maybe recently or some time ago, and actually found that b3, you have to be very precise. And black's ideas are very similar, like to the main line. a5, a4, h5, bishop h6. King hangs out in the center, actually, and hides behind the pawns. And white will try to kind of also fight on three sides of the board. It's going to be a very complex game. Here we go, h5. White responds in turn with h4. That destabilizes the knight. However, it's very difficult to attack this knight because rook g8 is met with knight h5, and then you lose. So we have bishop b5. This is an interesting move. Basically, Lupulescu wants to trade the bishops. He's trying to argue that this is good for him because this becomes a soft spot, right? Even though the structure is the ugliest thing ever, and you can transfer this knight to d5. So Grisha plays a very nice move. He plays a top engine move, queen e1. The point of queen e1 is that I am not going to take unless we do it on my terms. Queen e1 also sets up the move rook to d5. And it's too late for black to reconsider. If black plays bishop back to c6, preventing this, I play bishop to c4. The thing is, when you have all these pawns on dark squares, the light squared color complex is very weak. And the only defender of those light squares is the light squared bishop. So if you can successfully make this trade, white is positionally winning. Black is relying on the fact that the position is chaotic. And even though there are some positional downsides, that the dynamics are going to be in their favor. However, if the dynamics are not in their favor and the attack does not work, you lose. Your position sucks. Strategically, this is like the ugliest thing ever. Just ever, period. Worse than my face. I mean, it's bad. So, queen e1 is a very important move. Now, what should Lupulescu have played instead of bishop to b5? According to the computer, he should have played king e7, which just looks idiotic. And again, if white just plays bishop c4 to try to play bishop d5, apparently the point is bishop h6, and now the rook transfers over. So, for example, queen e2, right? And you're trying to, continue with this plan. There's a lot of positions where this rook can come over here. Yeah, well, life goes on. And a5, a4, and it's a very subtle position. Very, very subtle position. Also, you can maybe trade queens is another benefit of putting the bishop on h6. So, He chose the wrong plan. And the problem is in the Sicilian, when you choose the wrong plan, get ready to defend. Now I take. Whoa, Levy, you just said that was bad. I said it was bad when the rook was on A8. Because Lupulescu made one move, that's all it comes down to. Now I can take on B5. And if you take with the queen, well, you have no attack. I mean, you don't open the lines anymore, right? So takes, and now queen E2, just very subtly defending my position. Oh, you going back? No, it's too late. Queen A7. Queen takes B5, king D8. For a moment, it looks like white is about to get slaughtered. White has no check. So what does he do, folks? What do you do sometimes when you're under this kind of pressure? Very instructive. A4. Very instructive. And if en passant, this is known as an umbrella pawn. The entire attack has been stopped. F in the chat, please. In the comments, please. For the A-pawn, but the A-pawn had to be sacrificed in order to prevent the attack. Now Grishuk hangs back, he's gonna take on H5, and he is going to play this down on the light squares. His knight is on the dark square, but once it takes on H5, I just want to show you this very picturesque position. Every piece in Grishuk's position, except the H4 pawn, is on a light square. Have you ever seen that before? Grishuk has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pieces. And they're all on light squares. That's pretty cool, right? Like 10 of them are on light squares. I'm telling you. Dark square bishop, light square complex for white. Now, okay, now king A1 is forced. And by the way, he didn't trade queens because rook takes G2 would come at the end of the queen trade, and you don't want that. So he just plays king A1. Now he brings the rook back. Queen C2, everything is stabilized. Oh, you trying to infiltrate? Who's on the other side of that board? Boop! Game's over. You can scamper back and defend, but now another very important move. Rook C3, don't hang your queen, never too late. And now an important question. Do you take the pawn with check, or do you take the pawn with the pawn and try to promote two pawns? No, you don't take like this. Every move needs to come with a direct attack. Now the king slides over, and now G3. Taking care of the queen side, the center, and this side over here. Now the rook has no infiltration. I will maybe play queen E2 in the future to kick you out. Not there, because I would have lost my rook. Oh, you giving me a check? That's so scary. Queen D3. And in this position, Lupulescu resigned. All of his attacks were thwarted. The king hides behind the pawn. If queen D3, rook D3, your rook is just not getting anywhere. The rest of the game will be decided by me playing the moves C6, B4, B5, B6, B7, B takes rook, queen takes king. And Grishuk wins. A beautiful game. A very, very nice game. And actually, this game almost encapsulates the entire level difference in this tournament between some of the 2600 guys and a guy like Grishuk, who was, 2770, 2780. Very nice win for Grishuk, who with this win, I'm checking the live ratings, like the live top ratings. I will let you guys know. And these are also the standings. So I'm just going to pull up the standings here for you all. Here we go. Grishuk and Mamedyarov are tied for first. These two guys are kind of carrying the tournament single-handedly with their decisive results, and now Lupulescu is starting to kind of fall behind a little bit. Lupulescu and Deac are definitely kind of the guys with the targets on their back in this event, but Deac has had a very solid event, and Lupulescu did, but now a couple of back-to-back losses actually to those guys, to Mamedyarov and to Grishuk. So this recap honestly was fun, and I feel like I'm getting my energy back. Those of you who've been watching for a long time know that I've been a bit burned out, but listen, I appreciate your comments of support. Don't worry, if I really do need to take a break, I will. I'm good. I got my coffee. I got the best fans in the world. We have the best chess community on the internet as far as I'm concerned, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace out. Get out of here.